Hi, if you're thinking about buying a chest freezer, then there are always quite a few things to consider before you buy one. Don't always just look at the initial price. Now what I've done is I've come up with around 10 things to consider before you buy a chest freezer. So I've got one we can have a look at. Let's have a look. So number one, and probably the most important thing, is the size of it. I know it sounds silly, but we have sold quite a few chest freezers, gone to deliver them, and then we find they don't fit in the space. So this is really critical. Before you order one, check the dimensions of it. There's nothing worse than ordering something and then finding it doesn't fit. Now the next thing to consider is the capacity of the freezer. Now this is very important because this is basically how much food you can get in there. So once you've decided on the external dimensions, you want to try and maximize the amount of food you can get in there. So this is normally measured in litres, or some people still use cubic feet. But for the basically for this one, so this is around a 300 litre capacity freezer, and what you'll find is that people are comparing an old freezer to a new one, then don't always just go on the capacity. What you might need to consider is the thickness of the walls. The reason I mention this, because some people have had an older freezer that had much thinner walls, and what that did is that enabled you to get slightly larger capacity. But because energy ratings have improved a lot over the years, then some of the walls will be a lot thicker. And if you're working on the same external dimensions, then what that can do is that can actually reduce the capacity slightly. So that's number two on the list, to check the capacity of the freezer. So number three would be the energy rating. And this is basically how much energy that it consumes over a year. And this is an energy label. This comes standard with all chest freezers and all freezers. And what you'll find is that this is an A+ energy rating on this particular model, so it is pretty energy efficient. And have a look at this. This is the kilowatt hours per annum, and it can vary quite a lot across the country, but on this particular item, depending on the tariff you're on, it will cost between 12 and 13 pence a day to run. But have a look at this before you buy a chest freezer, because this can make a big difference to the running cost, especially if it's going to be used for several years. Something else that's on here is the noise level. For a lot of people that's not too important, because a lot of people do put these in outhouses or garages. And also on the energy label, then it shows the capacity of the freezer as well. Now the fourth thing to consider is, can it actually go outside? I know it sounds silly, because a lot of people have put chest freezers into outhouses or garages for decades now. But there's quite a few modern appliances that are not suitable to go out into a garage. When I say that, it just means that the ambient temperature goes below zero. And quite a few appliances now have something called freezer guard, and it does vary across different brands. They call it something different, but essentially it does pretty much the same thing. But have a look out for this, because if you are thinking about putting this appliance out into a garage or an outhouse where there is no heating at all, then have a look, because what you could find is if it hasn't got it, and if you need to call the manufacturer out, for example if you had a fault with it, then often they won't actually cover it if it is outside where the ambient temperature is lower than around 10 or 12 degrees. Now number 5 on the list would be how many baskets it's got and what are the storage facilities like. Now as you can see in here, this is about a 300 litre capacity freezer, so it's quite a big one, and within this you've got one basket. But what I'd always say is just have a look to see how many baskets it comes with, because what you'll find is if you're anything like a lot of people where you just throw everything in, then you'll find that a lot of the food you have at the bottom is not eaten, and then you have to throw it out anyway. But try and have a look for one where it's got at least a basket or an array of baskets that can make life a lot easier for you. Now number 6 would be, does it have a light in the freezer? I know this can sound daft to some people, especially when you have got very good lighting in the room that it's in. But if it is in an outhouse or a garage where there isn't a huge amount of light, then this can be really useful. Clearly this one doesn't have one. This is normally where it would be. But what you'll also find is if you do go for one with a light, it can just make it easier to see what's in here. So that's number 6 on the list. Does it have a light? So number 7, does the freezer tell you if the door is left open? So the kids go to get an ice cream or a lollipop from the freezer. Do they always shut the lid? Chances are not. So really what we want to do is for the freezer to tell you if it's left open. Now clearly if it's out in a garage or an outhouse, then you might not hear it, but on this particular one it has got an alarm on it, so if the lid is left open then it'll beep and it will tell us. So if it's inside, then that can be very useful and it can save you on several £100 worth of food. So number 8 would be, how easy is it to defrost the freezer? Now fortunately with chest freezers you don't need to defrost them very often, but it's still something to consider when you're buying one. So on this particular model, the facilities are really good. So you've got a drain plug at the front. You have got one inside, I'll just show you that in a moment, but what you can do here is you can just put a bowl or something under here so that when all of the water is coming out, then it's still got a lip to put a bowl or a tray under. And just on the inside here, I'll just show you this. So at the bottom there is again a drain. All you do is you just unscrew that, and when it's defrosting, all of the water will just go out through the hole. So this one's a nice easy one, but again it's something to consider when you're buying one to make life easier for you. Now number 9 would be, does the door have a lock? I know it sounds simple, but if the chest freezer is to be in an outhouse, potentially where it's not locked all the time, you will find that some people could come in, just open your freezer and be away with your food. And again, because of a size like this, then it can contain several £100 worth of food, especially if they're meat joints. So does it have a lock? Is that important to you? For a lot of people, if it's in a house, probably not. If you want to keep the kids out from pinching all the ice creams, then that's a pretty good idea. But that's number 9 on the list. Does it have a lock? Now number 10 on the list would be the price. And the reason I've left it till last is because it shouldn't be really the highest priority when buying this type of appliance. As I've gone through the list, just make sure that the one you're buying fits, so it's the right size, it's got a good energy rating. If you need a lock on it, then go for one with a lock if that's going to help. If it's going to be outside in a dark area, then go for one with a light. Make sure it's quite easy to defrost. So basically all of these options, have a look, see if the one that you're buying is suitable for you. Don't always just go for the cheapest one, because prices on chest freezers can vary a huge amount, from just over £100 to anywhere up to about £600-700 and above on some items. So I hope you found it useful, the 10 things to consider before buying a chest freezer. Please give us a thumbs up, click subscribe on a YouTube video and leave any comments below. I'd always ask for comments, whether it's good or bad, about the video itself. Also if there's anything else I've missed, something else to consider, then leave it in the comments. Or if you have got any questions about chest freezers or particular models or any features or anything like that, then again leave it in the comments and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching.